Welcome to the Tech Life with Rich Conte, bringing you stories from the front lines of the tech industry and the insider's perspective on starting, growing, or thriving in a technology venture.
Welcome to another episode of Silicon Harbor Radio, brought to you by the Tech Life podcast and Silicon Harbor Magazine. I'm your host, Rich Conte. Each episode, we take you inside Charleston's rapidly growing tech and startup community and give a voice to the local entrepreneurs and other contributors driving that growth. In this episode, we talk with the founder of a Charleston, South Carolina-based digital marketing services firm who got his start as an entrepreneur in college and then used that experience to launch a venture that's grown steadily and picked up an impressive accolade recently. Before we get to our guest, I want to let listeners know about the Away Carry-On and how it's transformed my travel experience. I'm a design fanatic and was just so impressed by the thought that went into the interior design and how it keeps everything organized. It's lightweight, yet durable, and the sleek look is a step up from my old travel-worn hardshell carry-on. The feature that really sold me, and has turned out to be a godsend, a built-in USB charger that can charge your iPhone up to 5 times on a single charge. Away was founded by 2 friends from New York who found themselves stuck at JFK with dead cell phones. The idea was born, and it led to a successful venture and a great product. They talked with thousands of travelers about their travel experiences and designed the luggage around those learnings. They also feature a 100-day trial, so you can live with it, travel with it, Instagram it, and if at any point you decide it's not for you, return it for a full refund, no questions asked. Get $20 off a suitcase by visiting awaytravel.com/techlife and entering promo code TechLife on checkout. Plus, they offer free shipping on any Away order within the lower 48 states. Away uses high-quality materials while offering a much lower price compared to other brands by cutting out the middlemen and selling directly to you. You can choose from 9 colors and 4 sizes: the carry-on, the bigger carry-on, the medium, or the large for extended stays. So get your $20 off a suitcase by heading over to awaytravel.com/techlife and entering promo code TechLife on checkout. Inc. magazine recently released their annual Inc. 5000 list of the fastest growing companies in the country. Making the list is a significant accomplishment for any company, and the Charleston area placed 28 companies on the list, up from 23 last year. I recently had the opportunity to talk with the founder and CEO of a local company that made the list for the first time about the venture, what the accolade means, and about his perspective on the Charleston tech and startup communities. Our guest on this episode of Silicon Harbor Radio, brought to you by the Tech Life podcast and Silicon Harbor Magazine, is Matt Baer. Matt is the CEO and founder of Q4Launch. Well, welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it. Great opportunity to be here and share with your listeners.
Matt, can you start by sharing with listeners a little about Q4Launch, your mission, the services you provide, and who your customers are?
Yeah, absolutely. We are a integrated marketing agency headquartered here in Charleston, South Carolina, that helps hotels, bed and breakfasts, small resorts, and vacation rentals with their entire digital life cycle of marketing. So everything from their website to managing their search engine presence, their social media presence, their guest life cycles, their email marketing, kind of that full suite of digital marketing services.
And how and when did you recognize the need for a solution like Q4Launch, and why did you decide to try and fill that need by starting the venture?
That's a great question. Years ago, I actually had an e-commerce company. Ran that for about 7 years. That's really what got my entrepreneurial journey started. And sold that company in 2008, actually the day before my college graduation. So that was an interesting place. Started that company in high school and then sold that the day before my college graduation, which made for a great story at the time as part of the Ball State University entrepreneurship program. Took a couple months off after that, moved to Charleston, got married, had the benefit of having just sold a company. So I had some walking around money and didn't have to jump straight into a job, much to the chagrin of my new father-in-law. But we actually was doing some free consulting through the Service Corps of Retired Executives. The gentleman who was my business broker who sold my first business was a SCORE counselor and had a lot of people he was helping, and they just kept running into digital marketing issues, and there was a lot of people then and now who were trying to take advantage of people in the digital marketing space. It's an easy space to wake up and decide one day you're an expert, and really wanted to help those people figure out what's true, what's not true, and how do you navigate your way through the somewhat confusing, somewhat complex, and constantly changing digital marketing world. So it kind of started more than anything as a pro bono thing, and realized quickly that I really enjoyed that piece of it, and started then on a paid basis working around the Charleston area as a company, helping people launch their big idea, from the brand of that. So we were doing logo design to the website of that. That's kind of where it stopped at that time. But over a transition period, realized we really didn't want to be a design firm, that we wanted to be a digital marketing firm who did design. So we spent some time figuring that out. What does that look like? Transitioning our resources and time and talent as a team to really support our marketing initiatives and the value we were able to create for our customer, and being able to attach value to that beyond just good design, which is oftentimes a bit hard to pinpoint with customers, and really get to that place where we were their trusted partner for representing their entire presence on web.
You mentioned your early experiences with entrepreneurship at Ball State. What did you learn along the way of bringing Q4Launch to market as an entrepreneur, and how has that affected how Q4Launch has evolved?
Well, that's a deep question. There's so many things that you learn, and so many new things we're learning every day. And I'd say that really lines up with our belief as a culture. One of our core values is to get better every day. Something we look for a lot in our team is people who are lifetime learners, and something that I think as an entrepreneur you have to commit to being, because otherwise you're going to fall behind and get left behind. But to try to answer the question more specifically, I think one of the big things I learned was just the importance of being in the game. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are on the sidelines dreaming about an idea and waiting until they have the perfect idea, or until the time and space and market and everything is just perfect and the stars perfectly aligned. And in reality, that time never comes. It's just, life's not that simple. But when you're in the game and you're working on an idea, or you're working on a business, maybe it's past idea phase and you're live and you're revenue positive, you really start seeing things differently. You start seeing opportunities differently. And that was very much the case for me in my first business. Our first business, we manufactured ATV parts and accessories, so for racing four-wheelers, which is a fun space to work. And the product that got us in the marketplace was a product I needed as a consumer. But about a year to 2 years in, I realized I don't think this is the product that's going to get us where we want to go. And we saw an opportunity to develop another product. Our customers were looking for that product. There wasn't a good solution in the marketplace for it, so we stepped up and figured we can fill that gap with the relationships we already had in the market. So we started to service that need. And that need is what catapulted the growth of my first company. It wasn't the product that got us there. But the lesson that I learned from that was you got to get in the game. If you're not in the game, you won't know what a good pitch looks like. So get in the game, figure it out, and you're going to learn things that you never could have learned had you stayed on the sidelines.
What were some of the key early milestones Q4Launch hit, or other early indicators that gave you confidence that the venture would be a success?
That's a tough one. There's a lot of different milestones along the way that give you that sense that success is coming. I think a lot of times you feel like you should be successful long before you are successful. And those overnight success stories we all hear about are after 8 years of crazy hard work and crazy hustle to get there. But I think there's a few defining moments for me. I think one was as we were making this transition from being a web design agency to being a marketing agency, and seeing the conversion rate on people who would come to us looking for a website, but through asking the right questions and understanding their problem better, we realized they really wanted to grow their business. And they thought a website was the path to get there because that's what they'd heard and that's what they assumed. But they would oftentimes launch websites without any new marketing strategy and find themselves in the exact same place, because just a prettier website with no new business coming to it doesn't really help you. So by asking the right questions and by listening to our customer, being able to realize that we were going to be able to make this transition successfully from being a web design agency to being a marketing agency, and that our customers would be in a better place because of it, and we would be able to provide greater value to help them grow their businesses. And that's been a big focus for us from the get-go and remains to be today. We want to help our customers make decisions that grow their business. And everything we do revolves around that. So we'll have customers routinely that come to us and ask about, hey, I want to do this, or I want to do that, or I want to can we spend this money with you guys to do X, Y, Z? And a lot of times we'll say no, not because we don't want them to spend the money or we don't want to grow our business, but because we don't think the investment they're talking about is the right investment for the next stage of their business, or that there would be diminishing return on that investment, or there's a lot of things. So we always want to know that our customers are making the right investment that we think will provide the return on investment that we expect. And putting that customer's interest ahead of our own ultimately leads to a better relationship in the long term, which ultimately leads to being in our best interest in the long run. But being able to have that conversation and not look for the quick wins from a billing perspective or anything else, but committed to the long-term success of the partnership is a very different mindset that's been very, very successful for us.
Now, Q4Launch recently made news, coming in at number 940 on the Inc. 5000 list. What was your reaction when you learned the news?
It was really exciting. Honestly, it wasn't a surprise to learn the news. It's something that as a company and as a team, we'd had our eyes set on for a while. As an entrepreneur, I would say it's one of those entrepreneur bucket list items for many of us that are in the entrepreneurship world. But it was a long period of committed growth to get there and committed hustle. We talk a lot to our team about staying hungry and hustle. Stay hungry, hustle, and stay humble. And that's one of the keys to success. It wasn't surprising, but at the same time, it was really rewarding. And really rewarding to the days of when we were doing all the right things, but growth wasn't coming, as we were trying to build our brand and build our positioning. You're like, why is this taking so long? Why is this so hard? Once you build those things and you're on the other side of it and it's happening and it's coming at a much faster pace, you're in a better position and you can enjoy that ride a little bit more along the way. So definitely a very focused effort to get where we are. Something that's hard for a business like ours. We're number 940 on the list, but we're, I think, in the 90s as far as the fastest growing marketing agencies in the United States. So when you look at the marketing agencies, I think there's 16,000 people who started a digital marketing agency this year. We're probably a higher number than that. I don't remember where I got that number. But when you look at that and how saturated and crowded digital marketing is, to be one of the top 100 fastest growing digital marketing agencies, or actually advertising agencies as a whole on the Inc. list, is also very, very rewarding. So it's number 940 on the list, but top 100 within our industry is really rewarding and exciting, and just something that we know has been a huge team effort for us in the last 3 years. But even before that, building the things we needed to do to be successful to get where we are.
What do you hope the achievement means for the venture going forward?
Honestly, I hope that it's a feather in our cap for our team and something that they can say, we were a part of this and we were a part of creating this, and that it propels us forward. I think it's easy to sit back and look at that and say, wow, look at what we did over the last 3 years, and say we're successful. And we are. And it's important to take time to do that. I often don't take time to celebrate the past successes as much as I do to look ahead at where we're headed. So it's important to do that, but it's also important to say, we've done this, and this is who we are and what we're capable of, and stay true to those core values that have got us here, and also know that it's going to take those core values to propel us into the future and help us keep getting better every day, so that we stay ahead of the competition and that we continue to grow and that we're doing the things that got us here as we're on this journey to going where we want to go.
You mentioned being in a crowded space. How do you think about your competitors, and how is Q4Launch differentiated from their offerings?
Yeah, so we have a couple competitors. We have a couple types of competitors, I guess I should say. We have the competitors that live in our industry with us and that we see at trade shows and conferences and all that. And that's very much a competitor in the true sense of the word. And then we also have the local digital agencies. So our customers are from Singapore to Maui and just about everywhere in between. So we have both those people that we have to compete against. We have the people who know our space and are experts in our space, being the hospitality space. And then we have the local people that our customer is out meeting at a networking group or a Chamber of Commerce meeting or whatever. And we have to know how to compete with those people. So those are very different conversations based on who we're competing with. So that's an important part of it. But I think the things that differentiate us are the same in both those spaces in a lot of ways. It's our commitment to our customer. One of the things we talk about is people often ask for references. And when they ask for references, they're typically asking the results-oriented questions. And that's fine and that's great. And we know where we stand on the results side of things. We know our results are better than anybody else in our space because we have the data that shows us that. But we also encourage those people, when you're making a reference call, ask about the relationship. Because to me, the relationship is one of the most, if not the most important pieces of the overall success, because you have to really enjoy working together because you work closely together. And not all times are rainbows and butterflies. You know, there are hard times in the digital marketing space, and Google's changing things constantly that can create hard times. It can create stress. And reputation management can create stress. And so there's a lot of these things that you want to know you have a trusted partner through. And I think the way that we have built relationships with our customers and the way we take care of our customers is one of the biggest things that has catapulted our growth to where it is, and that will continue to separate us from our competition. Digital marketers as a whole are not known for great customer service because they're stretched too thin and they don't really have an area of expertise besides trying to be a digital marketer. But by focusing exclusively in the hospitality space and knowing digital marketing really, really well and have been a part of it for so long, from my early days owning an e-commerce company to today, we're uniquely positioned to help our customers and break through the noise and the buzzwords and everything else and get down to the brass tacks of what does this mean for your business and how can we use this information, these insights, these strategies to grow your business.
What are your near-term goals or future milestones you hope to achieve?
A lot of what we're looking at is the next frontier of guest communication. I think that a lot of people are looking at the here and now and trying to make the most of that, and that's important. But we think to develop the solutions that the future needs, we have to understand the guest of the future. So we're spending a lot more time really looking at the guest of the future. It's something we've always done as a company, but trying to think about what does this look like in 5 years? What does this look like in 10 years? And what decisions do we need to be making as a company that will set us up to succeed in that future space? So when it gets here, we're not trying to figure it out and know what it means, but we've already forecasted what we think that looks like, and we have a whole list of products or solutions that line up with that future. And that's really where we're focusing our growth, is around being able to set ourselves up that we can help our customers succeed into the future. So it's important to succeed today and make sure that we're making an impact today. I think we've got that really well buttoned down, but then what is it going to look like in the future for our customers to succeed? How are they going to reach their guests? What does the guest want to communicate? What does that guest life cycle look like? And how are their expectations of the hospitality industry going to change? How do they want hotels to interact with them? How do they want to interact with hotels? So there's a lot of questions that we're asking ourselves and a lot of answers to those questions that we believe that we're working on building from a product perspective to position us in that place in the future where we are further differentiating ourselves from our competition, but also being in a place where we help our customers with so many different aspects of their business, really wrapped around the idea of driving more revenue for them.
What are the biggest challenges you're facing or anticipate facing?
I would say the biggest challenges that we face are the pace of change. I was recently spending some time at a travel conference, and one of the speakers quoted someone, and I can't remember the exact person, but talked about the faster things change, the faster they will change, and just the exponential pace of change, the exponential growth in the pace of change, which creates a big challenge. When you're in a space that is changing that fast, you have to be changing constantly as an organization to keep up. So that's a huge challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity and something that separates the mediocre people from the great people who can keep up with that pace of change and can embrace that and live that. And that's a big part of what we're focused on in our culture right now, is embracing that pace of change and keeping our innovation up with that pace of change so that we can be that valuable resource for our customers. And then the next part is directly correlated to that, and that is the education piece of that. Because so much of what we do is often in the news from a Google perspective or whatever else, customers need a certain level of education on what's going on and the decisions that they're making and everything else that goes into that, and making good decisions. And oftentimes they don't want to take the time to get that education. They just want the least expensive, least painful solution, which is rarely the right solution. So making sure, and we've always had a commitment to educating our customers. We do a lot of industry education through a webinar series that we lead, as well as through speaking at tons and tons of conferences in our industry. But continuing our focus and our commitment on educating the industry to help them make the right decision. Whether that right decision is to work with us or to try to do it on their own or to work with one of our competitors, all of those are viable options. We just want them to make the right decision for their business. And we have to make the right decision on if it's a good fit for all of us to work together.
Q4Launch is part of a growing tech startup community here in Charleston. What do you think are the keys to the growth we've been experiencing over the past couple of years?
It's an exciting time and a challenging time to be part of the growing Charleston tech scene, and something that we're really committed to doing our part as a company to foster that growth and invest into that growth. And I think a lot of it is the things we've been talking about. It's the talent piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
We need the talent to be able to create that future and what that looks like. And that requires a lot of change. It requires people to continue to be investing into the educational system that can support that type of education. And we've seen a lot of change in that space in the last couple of years. Typically, the education side of things lags a little bit from the pace of change perspective, but we're seeing some encouraging changes happening there in the education space. So we think continuing to drive that and to think differently about education. That's one of the things that's frustrating for us is the educational system isn't really necessarily teaching the right things when it comes to what we do. Somebody that's got a quote unquote marketing degree coming into our organization, it's like, holy smokes, I didn't know any of this world existed. So making sure that the universities are keeping pace with that pace of change, which is really hard to do, and embracing the private sector as a part of that, because I think the private sector has a lot of value they can contribute to the university and the public sector. But I'd say that talent is the top of that, and commercial real estate is also a huge challenge in this town right now.
Mm-hmm.
We just came through the process of having to move offices basically every 12 months. Then we were fortunate to be able to find some opportunities to do that with some short lease terms and other things, to be creative in how we do that. But when you're growing a fast company, as expensive as commercial real estate is in Charleston right now, it's hard to find a space you can commit to for 3 years when you're adding people at the pace we have been, because you have a lot of empty space that you're trying to figure out how to pay for. So continuing to be creative and looking at those types of solutions, which a lot of people are finding creative solves for that. But I think that's a big part of it. And finding that space that the tech community can thrive and grow. And for companies in this mid-cycle, we have a lot as an area focused around the startup and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 person shops. But what about the companies trying to go from 50 employees to 500 employees?
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? And how do we help those companies? Because going from 50 to 500 is pretty tough. A lot of people say, once you get past your first million, things get easier. And I can tell you, I hope that was true when we were struggling to get past our first million. But I can tell you that wasn't our experience. Once you got past your first million, it seemed like things got harder as everything got bigger. Looking for ways as a city, as a community, that we can resource those people. And I think there's a gap there right now for these kind of mid-life cycle companies that are past traditional startup, but still very much feel and run like a startup and are trying to go from 25 to 50 or 50 to 100 or 100 to 200 or 200 to 500 or whatever those numbers are and those brackets are, to equip and resource them to be able to make those next steps, because it's good for the city. It's good for the city from a talent perspective. It's good for the city from a tax-based perspective. It's good for the city from a marketing perspective that we have those types of companies, but it doesn't happen easy.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, government tends to want to find more ways to make that hard than they do to foster that growth.
What are some of the local tech and startup activities that Q4Launch and you personally are involved with?
There's so many, and that's awesome. That's one of the things that we love about this community. And one of the reasons I moved here in the first place was because of its startup-friendly culture. We've been very involved with Dig South. We were very involved with them and love what Stanfield's doing there. We've been involved with the different incubators throughout the years, been involved with Ernest out at the Digital Corridor, been involved in Tech After Fives, been involved in, you name it, we've been involved in it at some point. Sat on advisory boards for the College of Charleston, and we do as much as we can to try to be a part of that investment in the tech culture. And I think there's so many of those things happening now that need to keep happening. I think a part of that too is, and that's a lot of that is centered around the entrepreneur, but a lot of that is centered around employees too, which is important. We need that. Mm-hmm. We need the place the employees can go and they can connect with each other and network. But I also feel like we need to keep building our networking opportunities for this mid-level entrepreneur that a lot of times you feel like you're out in the desert trying to figure it out on your own. You've got all these employees that are looking to you for guidance and leadership and wisdom, and you're in uncharted territory. It's one of the things I've been very transparent with our team about. From a pace of growth perspective, companies don't do this. Like, it's not normal to grow at the pace that we're growing. And we need some grace because we're going to make some mistakes along the way, and we're going to have benefits challenges and everything else along the way that we're going to be trying to figure out. So we need some grace in that. But as an entrepreneur, I need places I can go and entrepreneurs I can connect with too and say, hey, when you had 40 employees, what did it look like? And how did you get from here to there? What were the keys for you to go from 40 to 100 or for 25 to 50 or whatever that is? But like connecting with like-minded entrepreneurs who are growth-minded and going through some of those challenges. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for that beyond just the Tech After Fives and some of those things, but some more focused time together in a smaller setting where you can dive deep into some of those challenges.
What's your long-term vision for Q4Launch?
Our long-term vision is to help our customers across their entire guest lifecycle. So we're heavily focused on the attraction stage of that lifecycle right now with our customers and very much serving what they would consider to be their traditional marketing needs. But we have a vision to expand that past the traditional digital marketing space, where in the future we don't really view ourselves as a digital marketing agency, much like the transition where we were a web design agency that transitioned to a digital marketing agency. We think our future is to transition from being a digital marketing agency and seeing the world through that set of eyes to really being a revenue production agency and seeing the future through that set of eyes and saying, what does it look like across our customers' life cycle and all the places that they interact with their guests and that whole guest experience to be able to drive value? And can we drive value in other places? And when you think about it from a revenue perspective and from a guest value perspective, differently than a traditional digital marketing perspective and how do I drive traffic or how do I drive social likes or engagement or whatever, your mind starts opening up to a lot of other opportunities. And those are the things that we're looking at right now and saying, what does that future look like? And how do we help our customers across that whole value chain be able to drive greater revenue with their customers, with their guests, and drive a better guest experience? And we know if we drive guest experience, we will ultimately drive revenue. In the same way that we have focused on driving customer experience within our company, knowing that it will ultimately drive revenue. But if we focus on customer experience for us, and if we focus on guest experience on behalf of our customers, we believe we will drive revenue growth across that whole space for us and, more importantly, for our customers.
Well, where can listeners go to learn more about Q4Launch and follow your progress?
You can definitely connect with us on social media. You can find us at Q4Launch. Our name is unique. It's the letter Q, the number 4, and then launch, all one word. So you can follow us there. You can connect with us on our website. You can subscribe to check out our webinars to hear a little bit about what we're seeing in the space, the changes we're seeing happening in the travel space, and how we're adapting and driving growth in that space. So I encourage you to connect with us there. Come to a webinar and learn about the things that we're learning about and that we're thinking about and dreaming about. Totally free, but just an opportunity to come and learn more about what we're up to and the way we see the world changing.
Matt Baer, CEO and founder of Q4Launch. Well, thanks for joining us today, Matt.
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it. And thanks for everything you do for the Charleston tech community.
What really resonated with me about that conversation with Matt was the journey that he's led Q4Launch through as they continue to broaden their focus from their start as a web design firm to digital marketing and into a future focused on guest experience. Matt's vision for transforming Q4Launch in a way that deeply embeds the venture in their customers' value chain is really compelling. And that type of strategic visionary approach is one of the traits that fascinates me the most about entrepreneurs. Another topic that fascinates me is cybersecurity. A few months ago, we featured local cybersecurity technology company Fish Labs. Listeners that enjoyed that episode may want to check out another podcast, Malicious Life. Malicious Life tells the obscure yet fascinating stories of the cybersecurity industry's pioneers and criminals that shaped its earliest days. It tells the history from the very first virus to the major ransomware attacks of 2017. Cybersecurity is in the news seemingly daily, making the show incredibly topical, as ransomware attacks target public services, corporations, and governments. It's as important as it is thrilling to discover the history of malicious attacks, how they first appeared in the 1970s and 80s and have increased in frequency since then. Host Ran Levy talks with both former hackers and security experts, investigating and telling their story over the course of the first season's 6 episodes. The episodes feature guests such as Stephen Cobb, who's been researching computer security and data privacy for 25 years, and Yuri Steinfeld, a lead researcher at CyberReason and the developer of Ransom Free. The series starts with a bang in Episode 1 titled Ghost in the Machine, where they explore the world of early viruses, the precursors to the type of malware we know all too well today. Those of us who've been working with computers long enough may remember a time when computer viruses were much more benign, and virus authors were usually just bored computer geeks and not members of a sophisticated, well-organized crime syndicate. Check it out. It's like Tech Life meets Serial. Well, summer is winding down, and it's been a great couple of months for the Tech Life podcast. In July, we set a record with over 16,000 downloads, and we followed that up with our second best month ever in August, with nearly 15,000. We really appreciate the support. As we head into fall, we'll have a steady slate of episodes coming your way on a weekly basis. Fall is a busy time on the Charleston Tech and Entrepreneur community calendar. JRS Coding School is holding an open house event at their new location on Shem Creek on September 7th, in advance of their next session, which starts September 18th. Tom Wilson, the founder of JRS Coding School, will also be featured at the next Startup Grind Charleston event on September 27th. The MUSC Innovators Meetup Group that we featured back in July will be holding their next monthly meetup on September 21st. The next Harbor Entrepreneur Center Happy Hour is September 26th, and of course every Wednesday at 9 a.m. they host their weekly 1 Million Cups event. And the Revolve Conference is back for 2017 on October 26th and 27th. Our partners at Silicon Harbor Magazine are a great resource for keeping up with all of the events and news in the Charleston technology, creative, and entrepreneur community. Visit them at siliconharbormag.com and follow them on Twitter at SiliconHBRMAG. You can follow us at TechLifePod and also find us on Facebook. The best way to keep up with the show is to subscribe. For iTunes, visit www.siliconharborradio.com or search for Tech Life with Rich Conte or Silicon Harbor Radio. If you enjoyed the show, let us know by leaving us a rating and a review. Subscribing via RSS is as simple as visiting techlife.libsyn.com/RSS. Before we go, I want to let listeners know about a great offer from the folks at FanDuel. FanDuel and daily fantasy sports in general is a great disruption story. What started as a niche hobby was transformed into an enormous market opportunity. Over 2.5 million players have won a cash prize playing fantasy sports on FanDuel. I've played in both public contests and in private leagues, and the daily FanDuel format is so much more fast-moving and exciting. Football season is back, and FanDuel has something for everyone. Contests start as low as $1, and there are lots of contests to choose from. Or start your own private league and let FanDuel do all the work. Pick a contest, choose your team, and keep track of your score in real time. Sign up today. Go to FanDuel.com, click the Join Now button, and use my code TechLife. New users get free entry into the NFL Sunday Million, with over $1 million in cash prizes when you make your first deposit on FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com and sign up with promo code TechLife. That's FanDuel.com, promo code TechLife. Void where prohibited. That's all the time we have on this episode of Silicon Harbor Radio, brought to you by the Tech Life Podcast and Silicon Harbor Magazine. I'm your host, Rich Conte, and thanks for listening.